Right to live. The fluorescent lights of the interrogation room buzzed like angry wasps, casting harsh shadows across Detective Marcus Kane's weathered face. Across the steel table sat 17-year-old Jamal Reed, his wrists raw from handcuffs, his eyes darting between the two-way mirror and the man who held his fate in calloused hands. "You were there," Kane stated, not asked. His voice carried the weight of 20 years on the force, 20 years of seeing the worst humanity had to offer. Corner of Fifth and Madison, 11:47 p.m. Security footage puts you at the scene. Jamal's throat tightened. "I was walking home from my shift at the diner. That's not a crime." "Walking home?" Kane leaned back, the chair creaking under his bulk. "Funny how you were just walking home when 3 shots rang out 2 blocks away. Funnier still how you started running. Because people were shooting." Jamal's voice cracked. "What was I supposed to do? Stay there and get killed?" But Kane wasn't listening. He'd already made up his mind, the way he'd made up his mind about dozens of kids like Jamal before. Brown skin, wrong neighborhood, wrong time. It all added up to guilt in the arithmetic of his prejudice. The actual shooter, a man named Vincent Caruso who'd fled in the opposite direction, was nowhere on Kane's radar. Vincent had connections, a cousin in the department, the right complexion for protection. "We've got 3 witnesses," Kane lied smoothly. "All of them put you with a gun." Jamal felt the walls closing in. His mother's words echoed in his mind from that morning. "Be careful, baby. Come straight home." He'd promised her. He'd kept that promise. And now he was sitting in a room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation, being accused of a murder he didn't commit. 300 miles away, in a cramped apartment that overlooked a Rust Belt city's forgotten district, former Detective Sarah Chon stared at her laptop screen. She'd been out of the force for 2 years, ever since she'd blown the whistle on evidence tampering in her precinct. They'd forced her out, not officially, of course, just made her life unbearable until she had no choice but to resign. Now she ran a small operation with 2 other ex-cops who'd been pushed out for similar reasons. They called themselves Second Sight, and they specialized in cases the system had already decided. Cases where justice had been predetermined by bias, laziness, or corruption. The email that had arrived that morning was from Jamal's mother, Diane Reed. It contained a desperation Sarah recognized intimately, the desperation of someone watching their child be devoured by a machine that didn't care about truth. "Please," the email read, "everyone says he did it. But I know my son. He works, he studies, he dreams of college. He's not a killer. Please, someone has to see him." Sarah made the call to her partners, Marcus Webb and Jennifer Torres. By evening, they were on the road. Detective Kane had moved Jamal from interrogation to holding. The boy had been there for 16 hours without an attorney, without his mother, without anyone who gave a damn whether he lived or died. Kane had seen to that, filing paperwork that classified Jamal as a flight risk and a danger to the community. The charging documents were already drafted. First-degree murder, weapon possession, resisting arrest, though Jamal had done no such thing. In Kane's world, it was simple. Close the case, get the conviction, move up the ladder. The truth was just another inconvenience to be managed. But Kane hadn't counted on Second Sight. Sarah and her team arrived at the precinct at dawn, armed with something more powerful than badges: information. They'd spent the night pulling security footage from every camera within a mile radius of the shooting. They'd found Vincent Caruso on 3 different feeds, gun in hand, running from the scene. They'd tracked him to a known associate's house. They'd done in 12 hours what Kane's department hadn't bothered to do at all. "We need to see the Reed boy," Sarah told the desk sergeant, her voice brooking no argument despite having no official authority. "And you are the people who are going to make this department look very bad if an innocent kid gets railroaded." She slid a folder across the desk. "That's the real shooter, Vincent Caruso. He's currently sleeping off a bender at 1247 Oakmont Drive. You've got about 2 hours before he runs." The sergeant opened the folder, his expression shifting from annoyance to alarm. "I need to get Lieutenant Marsh." "You do that." Sarah's eyes were steel. "And while you're at it, get Jamal Reed a lawyer and let his mother see him. Because if anything happens to that boy while he's in your custody, I'll make sure every news outlet in the state knows you had the real killer's location and sat on it. Lieutenant Catherine Marsh was everything Kane wasn't. Thorough, principled, and deeply troubled by the arrest report on her desk. She'd been out of town when Kane brought Jamal in, and returning to find this mess filled her with cold fury. Kane had a history of rushed judgments, but she'd never been able to prove misconduct until now. Sarah Chen's evidence was irrefutable. Within an hour, a team was dispatched to Oakmont Drive. Vincent Caruso was arrested without incident, still half drunk, the murder weapon carelessly hidden under his mattress. His prints matched those found at the scene. Ballistics would later confirm his gun fired the fatal shots. Jamal was released at noon, walking out of the precinct into his mother's arms, both of them crying tears that mixed relief with rage at what had almost been stolen from them. Kane was suspended pending investigation. He stood in Marsh's office, his face red with indignation. That kid fit the profile. I was doing my job. Your job, Marsh said coldly, is to find the truth, not confirm your prejudices. Clear your desk. 3 months later, Jamal sat in Sarah Chen's office. He'd wanted to thank her in person, to understand why she'd fought for him when the system had already written him off. Why did you help me? He asked. You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. Sarah looked at the young man before her, still healing from trauma, but unbroken. Because you have a right to live, she said simply. Not just to breathe, but to live. To dream, to grow, to become who you're meant to be. The system tried to take that from you. Someone had to fight back. Jamal nodded slowly, something hardening in his eyes. Not bitterness, but purpose. I'm going to law school, he said. I'm going to make sure other kids like me have someone fighting back too. Sarah smiled. The world needs that. It needs you. As Jamal left, Sarah turned back to her computer. There were 17 new emails in her inbox, each one a desperate plea from someone the system had failed. She cracked her knuckles and opened the first one. There was work to do. There were always more lives to save, more battles to fight against a system that too often valued control over justice, conviction over truth. But she'd learned something that sustained her through the hardest cases. Some things were worth fighting for. Some rights were absolute. The right to live among them,